Morning Intuitives, another pre-work video, not an INFJ video. It's a politics video, and these don't get that many views. But given that election day is approaching, I want to do a political video. I promise I'll get back to INFJ and MBTI videos either tonight or tomorrow. It's Monday. It's my only day off because, private country clubs are closed on Mondays. It's a golf industry thing. Please, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, subscribe, help the channel grow. Maybe one of my videos could help somebody who might only see it if, the algorithm gives, about that much of a fuck about some nobody like me. But this channel exists to potentially help people, spark people's mind, make them want to read into things about subjects I talk to, books, and listen to talks about people who actually know what the hell they're doing, but are less entertaining nonetheless. So, the topic of today is it time for progressives to form a third party? And the answer is mostly yes, and there's also a bit of a no, but that's in a specific instance that we'll get to. So, in the United States, we have essentially an oligarchy for our government, how it functions. We're not talking about what it is on paper. We're talking about how it functions. Janet Yellen even admitted this when Bernie Sanders questioned her on it. But, since, we'll be kind and say 1992, we have only had two choices that are two sides of the same neoliberal corporatist coin, and that is, Reaganite Republicans, which represent the Republican establishment since 1981, and Clinton-not Democrats since 1992. We're like the GOP light, because at triangulation we're in the middle, and sometimes, and actually most of the time, we just agree with the Republicans because we got the same donors, kind of thing. So, progressives, as Bill Clinton infamously said when he was questioned when running in 1992, well, how are you going to get the progressives to come out and vote for you? He simply said, they got nowhere else to go. All right. So enough is enough with that. And many people on both sides of the aisle and in the middle, few that actually exist there outside the DC bubble, are fed up with the status quo. And the Democrats refuse to basically give a shit about what anybody wants other than those that are of the 1% who donate to their campaigns. And the only other group of people they seem to actually care about and go after their vote is middle-class white suburbanite baby boomers, who many of which are moderate Republicans, which is what people like Bill Clinton and Chuck Schumer and Hillary Clinton, Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, that's who they are. Deep down, that's what they are. That's what they believe in. So that's what the people that they think their voices matter, because everybody knows, the people whose opinions should be heard about economic policy that could affect the next 40 years are people that are over 70, because they're going to be here because all boomers get to live to be 120, but that's a Kenneth Copeland thing about boomers as the chosen people that was quite disturbing. Anyway, so since that time, we have been in neoliberal corporatism, where they're outside of social issues. There's very little difference on most issues between both political parties. Tweedle red, tweedle blue, dumb, dumber. Picking the lesser of two evils. And many people, specifically those of us born after 1964, whose voices are essentially ignored and we're told to fall in line and that we're not allowed to question anything and just accept the status quo, have had enough. Because over the decades we have tried. First we were told, well, get out and vote and, get our guy to win the primary. And we did that with Obama, who ran to the left of Hillary Clinton and ran as a progressive and as FDR 2.0. And then as soon as we got him in office, he dismissed all the young people, progressives who were advising him, brought in the old boys, brought in the Slick Willie DLC third way crowd, and said in front of Congress that, I am a new Democrat. basically meaning like he is a Clintonite and picked Hillary Clinton as his Secretary of State and rehabilitated the, obscure, almost forgotten Delaware Dixiecrat backslapping good old boy shaking hands with Strom Thurmond, Joe Biden, to be his vice president because gotta get that white baby boomer vote because the all important white baby boomer vote. So he was rehabilitated at that time, and we all know, without getting too deep into Obama, he had a supermajority. He didn't do squat with it. We didn't even get a public option with it. He's a radical socialist because when he had a Democratic supermajority, he enacted a right-wing healthcare plan that was created by the Heritage Foundation that was supported in the 90s by Newt Gingrich, Chuck Grassley. It was part of Bob Dole's platform, and Mitt Romney enacted it at the state level in Massachusetts. But he did what the Republicans wanted, and yet they still hate him, and he still wanted them to love him, because after all, Obama is an ENFJ and wants everybody to love him. So, and isn't the best at standing up to people. So that was our, the youth's honest attempt at, okay, if this is what we got to do, we'll rally behind the guy we want, and we'll actually get some positive change. We'll give him the coattails, we'll give him the supermajority. And we did. We upheld our end of the bargain, and they basically, said, no, nothing to the left of our dear leader, boomer in chief, good old Slick Willie. And that essentially is what the Democratic Party is today. One can argue that by and large it is a cult of personality of Bill Clinton. When questioned about their policies in moving left, they, especially in the 90s and center left and Bill Clinton. That's what they revert to almost every time. In essence, radical centrism is, radical status quoism. In other words, they're radicalized to somehow maintain that failed system that is neoliberalism, corporatism, the New Democrats, the Democratic Leadership Council, the Third Way, Clintonism, whatever you want to call it. Whatever, the system that's been in place since the 1980s that has failed utterly. Radical centrism is obsessed with preserving that status quo because those that are seeking to preserve it have made out like bandits due to it at the expense of everybody else. So that leads to, where do the progressives go? Well, we tried to follow suit with the Republicans. They had their Tea Party in 2010, which, for them was pretty damn successful. It sent, John Boehner running for the extra large bottle of Wild Turkey, and he passed the buck to Paul Ryan. And, Paul Ryan thought it was the greatest thing ever because, he was like, fellow Ayn Rand devotees. But then they turned on him too, which was entertaining because he's a weasel and a corporatist. But anyway, we tried the same with the Justice Democrats. I was involved in that movement early on. We got some people elected. Do they use their leverage? Did they force the vote? No. So thereby, they are not doing what they were sent there to do, which is to represent us with the progressive policies that they were elected on, and to form that coalition that can obstruct the corporate Democrats when necessary and at least get some form of compromise. At least give us, half loaves. We don't even get half loaves. Remember half loaves? I remember half loaves. So that hasn't worked either. And now they just tell us to keep falling in line because Trump bad, Republicans scary. Well, Clintonism led to Trump. If we keep going in the same neoliberal corporatist direction and keep defending that broken status quo, that'll cause more right-wing pseudo-fascists to rise up and become cults of personality. We've seen that throughout history. It happens in other countries. Tony Blair was very much helped lead to Nigel Farage in the UK and that oafish buffoon Nick Griffin. But, at least the British people kept him out of Westminster, so good on that. And they kept Farage out too, but he still became very prominent. He is very, very good at his craft. He is a textbook sleazy politician who somehow comes across as somewhat likable. Like we have the sleazy Ted Cruz, but Ted Cruz, mainly just comes off as the guy you really want to punch in the face. So smug. Man. Kalinsky does the best Cruz impression. You should check out some of his videos. So, what does that lead progressives to do? Well, if you want a more detailed account of what I'm trying to rant about, go listen to some of Jimmy Dore's videos. I'm a nobody who doesn't really know any of this in a qualified manner, and Jimmy Dore will say that he's a jagoff comedian, but he's a lot more entertaining and talented than I am. Maybe I need to smoke weed, but I never really cared for it. Anyway, the People's Party could be the answer. Are we ever going to get a president elected on that ticket? No, but the idea is with a third party, if you can get it, well, first, if you can get a third party past 5%, you get government funding. And if you get it to 10% and actually become a spoiler, then the Democrats will have to take us seriously and essentially, I mean, we're not a parliamentary system, but essentially have to form a coalition with us and make a deal. And this has been done in American politics. For example, in 1992, Ross Perot won 19% of the popular vote. And 2 years later, when the contract with America swept in with the very sleazy Newt Gingrich, and it was the end of bipartisanship, and the glorious days of Reagan will return. He is part of that Contract for America platform, enacted a lot of, well, not a lot of, but some of Perot's policies to try to change things. None of the really good ones. Of course, they didn't stop NAFTA. It's like, stop NAFTA. That's going to line my pockets. Screw the working man. Bigger yacht, baby. So, but in as that well, not even a third party, in his case an independent, he later formed the Reform Party, was able to have one of the major two parties pay attention to at least some of what he was saying. And we need to do that on the left, because to continue to fall in line behind out of touch corporate neoliberals will not cause any change, and people that actually are swing voters will be like, well, we just tried Tweedle Blue, let's try Tweedle Red. And that's how somebody like Trump can get elected, because people get desperate and despise the status quo so much, those in power just continue to defend the status quo and say how perfect and wonderful it is, and how dare you even question it, you owe us your vote. And then they'll be like, well, this guy's insane, but he's insane, he might wreck the country, but he also might wreck the status quo. So if I'm going down, I want to take the old boys club of Washington down with me, kind of thing. Misery loves company. People get desperate like that and decide to roll the dice. So, I don't think we're going to get slaughtered in the midterms. It usually happens to the party of the sitting president, but also the Democrats offer nothing, have no message at the moment, and their message is Trump bad, and isn't Biden so great and progressive? He's not. Now that doesn't mean, their argument is, well, Trump's worse, but that would also be like, say you have two kids and one comes home with a report card of F's and the other one comes home with D's. Just because one has an F, a D doesn't suddenly become a good grade. It's just less bad. I've never seen anybody excited over getting a D. If you're in university, D's don't transfer. You can't get D's in the classes in your major. So there's nothing to celebrate about D's. And if one candidate is an F, why did you prop up one that was a D? Well, why? Because you don't care about like winning and actually making the country a better place. You care about preserving the status quo and keep that gravy train going for the club. So there are ways to take away that gravy train. Other countries have done it. They had Brexit across the pond, for example. And while there's a lot of bad that came with that, there are some old boys that lost their cushy job that they didn't deserve anyway. So that's, I guess, the silver lining of that. But there is still some hope within the Democratic Party. I know. Let me finish. And that is at the state level. Should we be trying to infiltrate the Democratic Party? Yes, with state representatives and state senators who actually can get some change done at the state level. In Pennsylvania, Katie Muth would be a good example of that. But at the national level, I think going the route of a third party, I mean, we can do both too. We can try to get progressives in the Democratic Party. I think if the People's Party, say, got 10%, that might give the Justice Democrats some teeth. But things are looking grim as long as those, Clintonite DLC third way types are still around, and they're still around, clinging on for dear life, dying to stay relevant, protecting that corrupt system that made some of them 100 millionaires, and they'll continue to hold on until they die because they know people hate them. They know the system's broken, but you know, they could be multi-billionaires and it's still not enough. They more. That's narcissism for you. More, me, mine. So they want every cent coming to them, and even that wouldn't be enough, and they feel that they're entitled to more. So in order to get the policies we actually want, I think the People's Party is a way to go. You can listen to Jimmy Dore speak about, that idea. Dr. Cornel West also gives a lot of good information on that idea. We've tried for at least two major election cycles, presidential election cycles, to infiltrate the Democratic Party and to swing it back left. And not only do they not do that, though the DNC will actively rig it for those in the club, but they'll also turn around and tell us how we have to go further right and keep appealing to those oh so important, godlike, suburban, moderate white baby boomers. So if you are not wealthy or in that specific boomer demographic, then understand they don't care about you and they feel entitled to your vote and they feel as if you know nothing and that your opinion should not even be heard because only the opinions of those that got the money or those that fit in that group are the opinions they care about, and that the status quo is perfect and unchangeable and there's nothing they can do even if they have power because at the end of the day they like the status quo, then perhaps it's time to move on. I don't know, will it work? I don't know, but you can't say it won't work if we don't try it.